stories are you taking? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Studio. Yeah, right. Mike's up. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Freshly Pressed 91 on Smooth 98.1. You're listening to Smooth's Breakfast with Ayo Myro Essay.
And he is Valentine Ohu. Good morning.
Join us as we welcome Ugo Dre, our analyst, solo analyst for today's edition of the show. Good morning, Ugo.
Morning, Michael B. Jordan.
Thank you very
In
much.
case if you guys are not watching, please go and watch.
Wow.
Val has gone Michael B. Jordan style.
Michael
We are
B.
being
Jordan.
intimidated in the studio today.
Actually, Ugo.
Yeah, you know that.
Ugo, you should find one to speak because Ugo is actually the senior brother of Michael B.
Thank you. God bless.
Shit,
Well done.
All right.
So to join the conversation, please send messages to WhatsApp 0809 4440981. You can also watch live on YouTube.
YouTube, search for Smooth 981 FM Lagos and watch as well as send comments through that platform. Okay, so let's go on to our first story for today, Ugo. Lagos government seals 67 buildings for flouting state planning laws. This is in the Vanguard newspaper. In the wake of the unfortunate incidents in Ikoyi, where a 21-story building collapsed due to what hasn't yet been unveiled, investigations are still going on, but what is suspected to be negligence and cutting corners, the lack of integrity, we would expect something like this. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu visited the site yesterday and he's speaking tough, even from the very first day. However, we learned that officials of the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, LASPA, sealed off the structures during a recent enforcement exercise carried out by the authority. The areas affected are district areas of Alimosho, Moson Okonla, and Agbado Okeodo in Alimosho local government. I have a number of questions, and that's why I mentioned the areas. In fact, I put a quick comment there. Come to the island. You know, it looks like, or it seems like, the people who have money are able to get away with murder, literally and figuratively. You know, when you hear things like this, a welcome development, must we have a building collapse before we can do integrity tests on buildings and buildings around the areas? And then why is it isolated to these areas?
Well, why it is isolated to the areas, what I really don't know. But I think there are multiple dimensions to this story, Ayo. First of all, if Lagos State really wants to be serious about sealing buildings or properties that are converted into commercial use from residential, then they might as well seal the entire Lagos. Let's even start from there. There's no major high street in Lagos today that you don't have residential properties that have been converted to commercial properties. None. Even the entire road stretch in Ikoyi were all residential. So let's even start from there. So if you go around Lagos, it's the same thing. So what I just see here is just Lagos State trying to basically just cover their face, right? They are highly culpable when it comes to a lot of the building collapses in Nigeria and a lot of the, wrong, whether it's, plan delay with deliberate delays in issuing town planning approvals or giving building consent. There's just so many. It's like a racket going on in there, and then there's just so many agencies. Because if you speak to developers themselves, they will tell you that even when you want to do the right thing, you want to pay all the building permits and have them inspect. One, they will delay coming to inspect. They won't even come and inspect. In fact, it is when you even want to pay full that they now start to stretch you and squeeze out all the money in your pocket. That's what happens. So I think all this one is just trying to just look nice in the media and have something that you put out there just so that you can douse all the criticisms. I think Lagos State government needs to look inward. How many heads of road? How many people have they fired? Forget about the guy that is suspended. How many people have they fired because of all this? And the entire racket goes down the chain all the way down. So all these ones they are doing are just disturbing people and trying to seal buildings and partially seal them. Like, this is just all waste of time. Give it 2-3 weeks. This is going to end. Was there no? I don't want to mention the name of the company. There was a company some was it a year or two ago that had the building collapse. They've rebranded and they're called something else and they're still building and going on. It's still happening. So let's just. I don't want to just mention company names, right? But we see all these things happening. So let's just don't waste. People should just focus on the real thing. We have there's even too many authorities. There's LSPPPPA, there's this one. There's just too many of them all set up.
Mm.
As far as I'm concerned, this is just my own opinion. To start, right? Go and try and want to develop a property in this Lagos and decide that you want to do the right thing. They would milk the hell out of you.
Thank you.
Pay all the right fees, whatever you like, you want to do. They will to get them to even come and inspect alone. You
You
pay
have to
through
pay.
your nose. Yes. And so that's what happens. So people know all these things and they start to cut corners because at the end of the day, a lot of developers want to develop at the right price. They want to do this. Nobody wants to just add up all sorts of cost. So you end up cutting corners. That's what happens. So let's just speak the truth. That's exactly what's going on. So if they really want to fix things, look inwards and then look within your own ranks. That's where the problem is.
Thank you so much for sharing this. Let's not forget, talking about the amount of money that developers have to pay in Lagos State in particular. Remember the Omonile tax in quotes that they will
There's
have to
just so
pay.
many.
When you go to the sites, the people around there who want to tax you every
If you're
single
moving your materials,
yes, you have
as
to
you're
pay
moving
that.
your
to settle.
materials, you still pay.
Yes. So
You paid.
I'm hoping that with what's happening in Ikoyi and the unfortunate loss of lives, it would be a wake-up call for the building and planning sector of Lagos State, so that there will be a massive cleanup as the governor has promised.
I'm actually not that optimistic because this is not the first time it's happening. In fact, that same day there were a few other collapses or so. I
Yes.
think sometime this
There
week
was
as
one
well.
they
So
said in Agunju
yeah,
happened, yeah.
it's happening every day, and this thing is symptomatic of the sort of bureaucracy you have in the Lagos state government. That's what's happening. So it's going to keep happening until they fix things internally there. It's very difficult. If you even want to do things by the book, you need to speak to some of these developers. They will tell you. If you want to do things by the book, they will not even allow you. Do you understand? So you don't, you sort of like take, things that really matter to people's lives, things that really have effect on people's life, and then turn it into some kind of racket. This is typically what happens. So we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. And this is symptomatic of what runs across the entire fabric of society.
And that's what's
It's
the
not
bear.
just in housing.
That's what Zubair Mobolaji is alluding to on YouTube. In his comments, he says, "On the building collapse is just a reflection of our society. Corruption eating deep in our society."
And then Yinka says, before we start sealing buildings, let's start with the structural engineering documents and drawings. Make available to the public the concrete design strength if it's up to 25 MPa or at least 20 MPa. In Lagos, you see 15 MPa in that same Ikoyi. Question is, who reviewed and approved these documents? All right. Since we're talking about building structure, town planning, let's talk about the panic that happened as gas leakage grounds, businesses in Lagos, fire got shops. From the Punch newspaper, business activities in some parts of the computer village Ikeja, Lagos State, were grounded following a gas leakage in front of the Awolowo House, a complex in the area. It was gathered that businessmen and women were operating around 7 a.m. on Wednesday when an underground gas pipeline was ruptured. We're having a conversation about this before the show, Ugo, and we said how much of a disaster was averted yesterday.
Yes.
This could have been a
Incredible.
terrible disaster. Please take us through the story.
Incredible. So apparently this was a gas pipeline, I think, operated by, according to the news, the company called GasLink, and then it kind of ruptured, and luckily they quickly came in, and I think they used chemicals to sort of douse it, and then GasLink also turned off the gas pipeline, and thank God, disaster. A possible disaster was averted. We still remember the one that happened along Mobolaji Bank, Anthony Way in Ikeja, where we lost a lot of lives. And then these guys have just gone on statistics. Nobody remembers. In some countries, this is something you commemorate like almost every year, because if you really hear the story behind that disaster, it's really sad. These were human beings there. But thank God we averted this yesterday. And again, this also speaks to regulations. In Nigeria today, there's something called EIA, Environmental Impact Assessment. That is done at almost every twist and turn if you're trying to bring in something or develop something or create something or build something in Lagos, right? So when you do these things, people are actually meant to come in and inspect before they even give approval. And then even after granting approval, they're supposed to come in once in a while to come and inspect. But like I said earlier, these things all end up being a racket. It ends up being someone's, means of getting money to fund his child's school fees or buy a new car. That's what happens. So the kind of job that needs to be done to avert things like this are usually not done. And my fear is that we seem to be surrounded by a lot of gas pipelines in Lagos now, because this is not the first time it's happening. We've seen so many over the last 3 to 4 years, uncountable. Whether it's a truck carrying gas or gas, or remember the one in Amu or Dauphin,
Yeah.
was it last year or two? It was last year. It was
Was
during COVID. No, it was not
was
during
during
COVID.
COVID.
So
No.
there's just so many like that going on, around Lagos State, and I guess across the country as well. So our lives are in danger, and this is all because of lax regulation. And again, Lagos State, forefront of it. How are you regulating develop? This is probably, in the next 30 years, probably going to be at least the top five largest commercial, states in the world, right? The way Lagos State is expanding. There's a lot of developments going on nooks and cranny of Lagos State, and at some point people are going to need power. I mean, a lot of this power is also coming from a lot of these gas pipelines you're seeing, because it's gas to power and all that. Some people are already thinking about gas to homes. I'm like, but how are you going to have all those things with the kind of regulations we have? We just don't have the regulatory framework or the regulatory attitude to actually, ensure that all these things that are going on here protect our lives. That's the most important thing, and that's just my fear here. But we thank God we're able to avert this one.
Thank you. Tunde here says building control agencies across the country are notorious for corruption. An official of the agency in Ogun State was talking with impunity and telling a client to just bring money and that it's close to weekend and the boys need to go home happy. They talk and act with corruption-induced impunity. Joseph Mayin says the government isn't sincere because too many hands with the responsibility of building the state. Also, the laws are not balanced. If such an incident were to have happened in Mushin or Yanakwaja, such properties would be seized. But other highbrow areas isn't the same. May God comfort the families of the bereaved. Thank you, Joseph.
Thanks, Joseph. All right. ICPC DSS arrests 48 lecturers, security officers, others over Jupe exam leakage. The joint operation tagged Operation Combo, conducted in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, led to the arrests of lecturers, security officers, workers, and students from some of the participating universities in the exam. In the Vanguard, where this report is being taken from, the universities are mentioned, and they say that candidates were mostly minors, allegedly who paid 350 to 500,000 naira each to suspects in the various tutorial schools to engage in the illegalities.
I don't understand what they mean by minors, though. But first of all, for those who are wondering what JUPEB means, right? Because there's just so many of this kind of exams. So JUPEB is basically an advanced level exam that allows you, gain direct entry into university. So you sort of like get into 200 level instead of 100 level. That's basically, what it is. I remember in my days it used to be called pre-science, something like that. So
Yeah,
schools had
pre-science,
different
yes.
ones, yeah. So I think now they sort of like have a journal. I think Unilag basically organizes this. So the story is just the same thing: corruption. And this one appears like it's an entire syndicate
Yes.
between the schools, the lecturers, the security people within, maybe those who are supposed to sort of secure, the examination documents, and then students and their parents. Big shame, really. These are the kind of stories that should be big headlines, because this is a major scandal. My only concern is really how the matter has been investigated, because we know this Nigeria. You know what happens typically. The evidences will be truncated or they will be tainted, and at the end of the day, you can't really prove much. But the way this has gone, if you read the article, these guys were actually sharing exam answers on their WhatsApp groups, right? Giving them tips on how to, pass their exams. At the end of the day, so you sort of want to do it like a root cause analysis. And what is really driving these things? At the end of the day, there's a general incentive here, guys. And the incentive is that the parents want their children to get into, university. Because perhaps the kind of kids, with due respect, could probably write this kind of exams, and the ones who maybe struggle to get through jam and get through the regular means, so they go through this method. So they want to get them in school by all means, and then those themselves, this is major revenue generating income for them, because they actually pay a lot for this kind of exams. And then the school makes a lot of money, and of course the lecturers and everybody in the syndicate gets a whole lot of money, because parents pay a whole lot just to get their kids in there. So the incentive is just rife out there. And then there's also no regulation, of course, because I think this is organized by Unilag. So you also don't have anyone out there who is sort of overseeing things and ensuring that things are being done properly. It's a big shame, and I think whatever it takes, this should be completely this sort of exams or this sort of schemes should be completely truncated. Just kill it completely, because it's obvious that the schools involved cannot organize exams. It's a big shame if you have exams like this at this sort of level.
Yeah.
Organized, and answers have been given to the students ahead of time and sharing on WhatsApp groups. Just a big shame, and I fear that perhaps there's a lot more to this. This racket is probably not limited to this sort of exams. Probably across as well. Other exams that they conduct in these universities, but a big that ICPC and those involved, because it looks like a very massive sting operation conducted. So sometimes you got to give these guys kudos.
Kudos, absolutely.
But I hope that it's just beyond catching headlines and catching people. Prosecution is actually the real thing, and when it involves parents, lecturers, university people, this thing usually goes south. You would, I can assure you guys, you're not going to see anyone prosecuted for this thing. I can assure you, they will sweep it under the carpet. It's made headlines, that's fine. Whoever it is that is in ICPC or DSS or whatever, they've earned their pay and their rewards. But that prosecution, a long thing, man.
Prince says, I took my son for NECO common entrance exam for Unity schools. I saw parents sneaking in prepared answers with the connivance of the invigilators. Same people who will condemn politicians.
Exactly.
And JJ says Jupe isn't only organized by Unilag, it's a body for many schools.
Yeah. But from what I read here, Unilag basically it said it is coordinated by University of Lagos and has up to 10 accreditors.
See that?
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next headline story. It is focused on Anambra. 2 days to go. The countdown has definitely begun in terms of the elections, the gubernatorial elections, with the frontliners coming up, APC, ABGAN, I believe PDP. INEC ensures core members against death disability. Punch newspaper reports. I'm glad you chuckle, Ugo, because earlier this week, we had talked about the safety of the lives of NYSC members who are drafted in as ad hoc staff during election period, and with the sense in this, should children or young people be pulled out of Anambra State because of the threat of violence following the election, coming up in November 6th. Well, INEC have come out to say that they now have what is called electoral hazard, a group personal accident policy covering death by accident, temporary disability, permanent disability, and medical treatment due to accident. I want to ask you, Ugo, as a parent, would you be willing to, is this satisfactory in terms of, okay, I can now send my child to Anambra State this weekend since INEC has provided insurance for them in case they die or they are maimed for life?
First of all, I support insurance. Insurance is good.
Yes.
I mean, we should always be insured against all sorts of stuff, whether INEC or not, right? It's INEC's responsibility anyway to ensure their staff and everyone who works with them and their assets. That's normal. So this is nothing new. However, the way this is sort of written and the narrative they have, it's like you're telling somebody, what, just go to Third Mainland, jump off the bridge.
You injure, you die.
No, I will ensure you.
Just
Don't
make
worry.
sure that somebody gets paid.
Come on, man, please. Can these guys just be serious here, right? This just makes no sense. I don't see how any reasonable parent would allow their child, who they've toiled and really worked out, sacrificed a lot to get them out of university in this very difficult country, right? And then they're now doing national service and you're telling them to go, in Anambra State where that it's been very volatile, where, I was reading a report from, Chetas SBM, and they said this is probably going to be the lowest turnout ever, in Anambra State election history. And then that's where you want elite core members to go and work, and then you're promising them insurance. Are you kidding me? you actually give. Why don't you get soldiers to go and do this thing?
I was
Or
going to say
something?
it's not
Exactly.
Yeah,
like you're drafting
get
them
them.
to go to
Yeah,
war.
get them to. So this is not just. I mean, I don't know. Except maybe the story is just written this way to sort of instigate some kind of sentiment or whatever. But it doesn't make any sense really to be honest. INEC shame on you for that. You can't. You shouldn't even come out to say stuff like
Well,
this,
this is the same
right?
INEC that released a handbook on how to deal with kidnappers, one of
No,
which
no, it
is,
was NYSC.
oh, sorry,
Mm.
NY, sorry, it's the same
NYC. Yeah,
NYC.
that's all the same. The NYC
Yeah.
shouldn't even allow things like this, and that's why a lot of people out there, and I'm one of them, who clamor for a complete change of how NYC has been run.
Mm.
The reason why we had NYC several years ago has changed. A lot of things have changed now. I think we're a lot more interconnected people. So let's all change the entire idea of NYC. It's still fine to serve your country after university, but you can change it entirely. It doesn't have to be this way at all. And that's why I said it's because a lot of people are feeding fat from this. This is feeding an entire, industry, an entire government agency with, staffs and families relying on it. So that's why it's difficult to sort of want to change it, because it's going to probably affect the jobs. But they have to. You can't have core members going to, in quote, war zones like this and say they're going to conduct an election and what you're trying to guarantee them is insurance, life insurance. Who wants that? Who wants
It's
that?
not as if the insurance will necessarily protect them against harm. That's my
It's
own
not. The
issue.
insurance is just after the
After
fact.
the fact.
Yeah, I think what you need to do, if even if you want to assure them of their safety of their lives,
Yes.
security agencies, these are the plans that you have in place. This is what you do. This is these are the kind of things that people want to hear.
Yeah.
Not that they are insured. Like really, how much
And
is the payout for the insurance anyway?
and really, if it's so important, why not ensure that you hire people that you can pay to secure lives and
Exactly.
property and conduct a successful
Exactly.
election instead
Yeah,
of
yeah. You
hiring
can
cheap
create
labor?
this.
Because getting NYC is
Good.
almost like cheap labor.
Great incentives now.
Yeah.
Tell them anybody who wants to come on, if you want to be an electoral officer, we'll pay you 1 million or 2 million.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then let people now decide, okay,
It's
weigh
worth
this
spending
against
for.
against
I can
yeah.
get personal security or
Uh-uh.
something. I'm going to.
No, I don't want to vex this man.
Let's talk about e-payments now. Transactions rise 58% to 25.9 trillion naira. Sounds like an announcement, a lofty one, but it's highlighting the Nigerian interbank system, settlement system, reporting the value of transactions performed with electronic payment channels rising year on year by 58%. Ugo, please break this down for us in terms of numbers and the impact vis-a-vis the expectation of CBN and the introduction of e-naira to, also boost these numbers.
So, not to bore listeners with a lot of the numbers here, but the bottom line here is the payment, e-payment volumes or transactions in Nigeria is one of the highest in the world today, and that's why if you look at a lot of the startups that are springing up, out of Nigeria, they are mostly fintechs catering to the space. I mean, the volumes are just too much, and it's almost like there's a market for everyone. In here, Nigeria. If there's one thing the CBN has really done very well, I think this kind of started in I think the first Sanusi government or so, but the second one, as the Royal Highness, is the one that actually pushed this further before MFLA, which is cashless payment, and they've done so much already. And today, almost everybody, people hardly go cash these days, right? So it's either you're paying your transfers or you're paying with a debit card. And I think we take this for granted. Even in the US, they are nowhere close to us when it
Yeah,
comes to
I agree.
transfers. Nowhere close at all. In fact, in the US, if you transfer $10,000 from your account to another person's account, they'll flag it. Right, Nigeria transfer 10 million. Nobody will call you. Did you get the alert?
In fact, getting down to the rudimentary basics, my brother was around from the US some weeks ago. He was so shocked when I transferred money and he got it as we're standing there
Exactly.
within seconds. He said, "No, this doesn't happen." in
It
the
doesn't
US."
happen. It doesn't happen. It
And
doesn't
sometimes
happen.
we sit here and we just feel like,
Yeah.
we can knock the government from here till tomorrow, not
it
realizing our
doesn't happen.
financial system is one
That's
of the best.
something to actually praise. In the UK, it's the same, especially if it's interbank
Transfer.
transfers. Just expect at least 24 hours.
Yeah,
Not even.
here a lot of even Nigerian musicians, when you listen to their music, sometimes you hear Cash App and things like that.
Yeah.
Nigerian, payment system predates Cash App,
Yeah.
so they just started having things like that over there, right? So in America, it's a Cash App, but we had it here since, right? So in area as well is also latching up on this basically. It's all the same transfers, trying to make movement of cash and transfers very easy for Nigerians. It's all part of the financial inclusion plans. Unfortunately, we haven't even gotten as much, number of people who want financially included into the economy yet, or integrated into the economy yet. And the plan is that INAIRA should sort of help this. What a lot of people don't know is that INAIRA at the phase we're in now requires that you have a bank account, but really the phase that they're going to get to where they really want is where all you need to have is just your phone number and your NIN, right? So once you have a phone number that's registered with your NIN, then you don't need the bank account. You can just create the wallet on your phone, and then you can get money from anyone, and that's it.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really where it's going to. So, and this is all buttressed by some of these numbers that you're seeing. This is incredible number, 25.9 trillion, transactions this year so far. It's incredible stuff, and it keeps growing. This is 58% growth. In fact, last year that we had COVID was one of the largest growths that we have seen with payment transfers. And so, are you surprised you have two unicorns from this space, right? Exactly. So you're probably going to see a few more, coming here as well in this space. At some point, it'll be saturated, but and then there's a huge market here. Nigerians do a lot of transactions, and this is from an economy that is depressed. So imagine when things really pick up in Nigeria, right? And the economy is maybe bouncing back, and there's just going to be a lot more transactions. So yeah, good stuff.
Will that be a reflection of the good work that MFLA, Governor Murphy is doing?
Well, I mean, Murphy has his own good and bad, rough patches. But I mean, I think maybe this you can put in a good column side.
Just to let you know that Yemi from Anthony says, if INEC can pay 1 million naira, I am ready to join the exercise.
So sign him up.
Yeah.
In more positive news, after 9 years, the road linking Bama and Banki, 65-kilometer long, it said leads Kanuri commercial and historical town of Bama to the border town of Banki, and shares borders with neighboring Cameroon Republic in Central Africa, has been opened for the first time. This was flagged open by the governor of Borno State, Professor Obagana Zulum. It says, he did this with the military authorities. It says it signifies a progress in the fight against insurgency. Do you see it that way, Ogodre?
It is. I mean, it is. Whatever you're able to, gather back, take away from insurgents or from terrorists, it's a win really, and we gotta celebrate it because Val, we don't know what has gone what has gone into achieving this kind of landmark success. We don't know how important that road is to the economy of the people. This 45-kilometer road is actually very long, and so people may have lost their lives just so that they can reclaim this road, no matter how long it's taken. So I gotta give kudos. I mean, I will look at it from that side. I gotta look at it from the brighter side. But there's just one portion of this article I couldn't resist really. And I want to read it out. And it says, so this is from the governor actually. It says, as we were coming here today, I sighted some immigration personnel busy extorting our motorists along the Maiduguri Bama Banki junction, which is unacceptable. I want to strongly sound a warning, especially to immigration personnel and other sister agencies, to desist from extorting motorists and passengers. I have given a marching order to the military here, right, to arrest anybody engaged in the smuggling of goods, especially diverting the main road to the beach. I mean, this country is just crazy.
Who are you to give orders to the military? Let's just say
not just orders, marching orders. But anyway, it's the governor. What the crazy thing is that this is a road that they've just been able to recover from terrorists, and guess what? They started extorting. Another economy is booming.
Yes, that's
one time.
Economy.
Yes,
Extortion.
That's it. Immigration, not police, or immigration. Guys, man.
We also hear announcements, that they've recouped or they have achieved a turnaround in a year. But anyway, death toll climbs to 22 in Lagos. High-rise building collapse. Just an update on the developing story. The Guardian reports that 2 more bodies were pulled out early Wednesday from the debris of the collapsed Lagos high-rise building. There's still traffic on that route. But beyond the traffic, and you know what that traffic just does to me? It just makes me realize that this life is just a pot of beans. Like, while people are struggling and still trying to hold on to the last thread of life, business is going on.
Life goes on, bro. Life just goes on.
But unfortunately, with the countdown or with the death toll, with the number of bodies being pulled out to Godre, I mean, how do you've seen everything that happened? What has it done to you, like in terms of reflections and the way you've seen, both based on the stories we've talked about?
Yeah, on my Instagram a couple of days ago, I put up a video on inflation and how evil it is. And because when people hear inflation numbers, inflation is 18%, 17%, it just looks like one of those things economists are talking about. But inflation is evil, man, and this is an example of how evil it can. I mean, I'm not trying to say this is what caused it, but I'm just giving you an example. When prices of goods and services are very high, or it's up, people cut corners, right? People cut corners. So you start to see a lot of substandard goods being imported into this country, right? At all, because at the end of the day, people have to survive, people have to consume. So business people would adapt immediately, and when they adapt, they just ensure that it's just substandard goods that are coming in, things that people can buy, because you still have to get things to their price points, right? And that's why you see, no matter how hard things are, we still kind of just survive in this country. We survive on a lot of substandard goods. So whether it is fake building materials, or whether it is your sachet of milk, reducing by half, even though the pack is still the same, which economics call shrinkflation. Whether it's your bar soap that it's still in the pack, but if you use it like thrice, it's done,
finished.
right? Or whether it's fake drinks. You see a lot of shady that in the news. They caught people that were. You see a lot of fake
Or
drinks.
what if it's fruits that are not ripened, that chemicals are used on it to make it seem ripe?
Exactly. So that's inflation for you. That's what's triggering it, because at the end of the day, people want to sell things at slightly maybe the same price or slightly above the regular price, but the quality is bad. So we got to be very careful with the kind of things that we buy and the things that really matter, especially things that have to do with lives.
Yes.
Let's be very careful. Even this gas pipeline, the pipeline itself, what material is it made of? So that's a food for thought for all of us. And I think that we just got to take quality and price really seriously, particularly in a highly inflationary environment.
Thank you for that connection from inflation to the real life consequences that we experience these days. Ugo Dre, thank you. Excellent
Thank you,
analysis as
Ugo,
always.
as always, yes.
At Ugo Dre is his handle on social media. Please let's engage. Follow the conversation with the hashtag FreshlyPressed981. Join Ayo and I in 8 minutes to share your thoughts on the headline stories. Any story that resonates with you, please share your thoughts then.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Ugo.
Thank you. Have a lovely day, man.
You too, man. So we'll talk now.
Yes, please.
When is your last?
December 15th. Yeah.